At the welcome back dinner, I lost a game of truth or dare. Someone jeered and told me to kiss Tam Jones. I saw the disgust in his eyes, so I downed my drink without blinking and said, cool and composed, "He's my little brother. Don't be ridiculous." The whiskey burned all the way down my throat and into my stomach. Heat bloomed in my cheeks. I ignored the sudden hush around me, and the searing gaze on my back, tossed out a curt "excuse me," and slipped out to the terrace. The night wind sobered me a little. For years had passed. I should have let it go by now. Yet the look in Tim Jones's eyes kept reminding me how absurd I'd been back. Then to confess to my own younger brother. It was his 18th birthday. Our parents weren't home. I planned a party so he could celebrate with kids his age, but he turned me down. He lowered his head to look at me, his eyes shone, and when he smiled there was a dimple at the corner of his mouth. "I only want to spend it with you, big bro." His voice was soft, almost coaxing. He hadn't been like that at first. When he first came to live with us, Tam Jones was like a skittish hedgehog, sullen, silent, and frighteningly fierce when he lost his temper. He refused to call me brother. Even though he was 5 years younger, he kept saying my full name, Lewis Wilson, every time. I didn't get angry. I'd heard some things about his family, and if anything, I felt sorry for him. So I looked out for him as much as I could. Over time, he stopped pushing me away. He even began to call me brother. Like a house cat that has finally warmed up, rolling over to show its belly to the one it trusts. He struck me as a little adorable. If I had begun by caring for him out of pity, what came after was nothing but my genuine affection. But that affection changed flavor without my noticing. When his eyes were filled with nothing but me, I couldn't hold back any longer. "I like you, little Tam." His brows lifted. He seemed not to grasp what I meant. "Bro, since when did you get so cheesy?" The last scraps of reason told me to stop, but the thrum in my chest clamored for me to go on. I drew a long breath, looked into the eyes where my reflection trembled, and said, "One word at a time. Not the way brothers like each other. The kind of like that wants to be together. Tim, I don't want to be only your brother." With every sentence, his smile thinned. At last his face went dark, and he cut me off. "Bro, don't joke around. I'm serious. I've never lied to you." He jerked back a few steps, his fist clenching and loosening. Suddenly he laughed. "Never lied to me." My heart lurched. I thought he didn't believe me. I opened my mouth, and he was already on me, fisting my collar and slamming me into the wall. There was a heavy thud. Pain shot through the back of my head and set my body buzzing. His roar in my ears snapped me back. "So you like playing the martyr every damn day? Huh? How does a freak like you have the face to make me call you brother?" My head throbbed, but it couldn't drown out the ache in my chest. He shoved me away and muttered a curse under his breath. "Had to pick today of all days to discuss me, and you're the one feeling wronged." At some point my face went hot and wet. I'd started crying. I'd imagined many outcomes to that confession: an awkward refusal, a laugh to brush it off. I had never imagined he'd react like this. I gave up. I fled, almost in a panic. My thoughts snapped back. Someone had come up beside me without my noticing. It was Tam. And for years he'd grown taller, shoulders broad enough to blot me out. I went rigid and took an instinctive step back, but he caught my wrist in one quick grab. Running where? His fingertips were scalding. I tugged and couldn't get free. The alcohol had turned my limbs to water. A dull ache throbbed behind my eyes. "Let go." Tam suddenly laughed. He bent close, breath brushing the side of my neck. "Quite the performance, Lewis Wilson. For years away, and your acting's improved." I jerked my head aside. He paused, then forced my face back to his. "Weren't we never speaking again?" His thumb rasped along my jaw, hard enough to hurt. "What's this? Couldn't hack it overseas and came slinking back to make me sick." He knew. He knew my father's health had taken a turn. He knew the board had yanked me back in a hurry to put out fires. "Tam," I heard my own voice shake. "Have to do this." He let go all at once. I stumbled and caught the railing. "Do what?" He drew out a handkerchief and wiped his fingers, unhurried. "Who was it who said he liked me? And now you're playing the doting big brother for whose benefit?" I clenched my fist, nails biting into my palms as I forced the anger down. I turned to go. I had taken one step when he yanked me by the shoulder and pinned me to the wall. Something unreadable burned in his eyes. He ground out between his teeth. "Leaving already? Weren't you the persistent one back then?" Persistent. The alcohol slowed my thoughts. I breathed deep and met his stare. "Tam, about back then I'm sorry." His brows knit, the vicious edge in his gaze sharpened. "Liking you was my fault," I said evenly. "I've changed." His fingers bit down on my shoulder. "Changed what, exactly?" His laugh was ice cold, voice low and dangerous. Changed into this putting on a show the second you're back. I was too tired to argue with him. Think what you like. I pushed him off, smoothed my rumpled suit. I came back for the company's business, not to rake over old history with you. Footsteps sounded in the distance. Someone was calling my name. My assistant, probably he must have noticed I hadn't returned. I stepped back to put space between us. The driver's here. I'm leaving. He didn't stop me. He just stood there watching me with that stormy stare. The night wind knifed down my collar. Only when I slid into the car did I notice my hands were shaking. I shut my eyes and tried to steady my breathing, then it hit me again. That villa was his home now, too. I had barely stepped through our front door when an engine roared up outside. I paused, drew a breath, and went in. Mom was in the living room with tea. She smiled and waved me over. Louis, back so early? She handed me a hot cup. Where's little Tam? Didn't you come together? The porcelain warmed my fingertips. Before I could answer, the door swung open. Tam walked in with one hand in his pocket. His gaze skimmed past me, then slid away. I'm back. His tone was easy, as if nothing had happened. Mom nodded, pleased. Perfect. You haven't seen each other in so long, catch up a bit. Tam gave a short, derisive laugh, sauntered to the seat opposite me, and stretched out his long legs. The tip of his shoe nearly touched mine. We should talk. He fixed me with a look, the corner of his mouth tilting into something unreadable. So, big bro, how was life abroad? I lifted my eyes to him. There was a challenge there and a flicker of something I couldn't make out. Fine, I said, level. Work's busy. I haven't had time to think about much else. Really? His fingers tapped lazily against the armrest. I thought you might spare a thought for home now and then. I kept my face impassive and my grip steady on the cup. I've been on top of the company's affairs the whole time. The company? He arched a brow, suddenly leaned forward with his elbows on his knees and stared straight into me. And besides the company, nothing. Sensing the shift, Mom hurried to smooth it over. Little Tam, your brother just got back. Don't bombard him with work. Tam reclined again with a languid but his eyes stayed nailed to me. I set the cup down and stood. Mom, I'm a little tired. I'll go up and rest. All right, go on then. She patted my hand. Your room's all made up. I nodded and headed for the stairs. I just reached the turn of the landing when Tam's voice came from behind me. Louis Wilson. My step faltered, but I didn't turn around. He chuckled, voice pitched so low only I could hear. What are you hiding from? Weren't you so bold back then? My spine went rigid. I didn't answer. He said nothing more either, but I could feel his gaze on me all the way until I shut my bedroom door. After I came home, I ran the company's affairs with watertight care. Dad's condition stabilized, and he was discharged. At dinner that night, Dad set down his chopsticks and said evenly, Little Tim, the Joe family's younger daughter is back in the country. Make time to see her. I was sipping soup, my fingers paused on the spoon, then moved again, as if nothing had happened. Tam didn't look up. Not seeing her, he said, cool as ice. You, Mom scolded, frowning. What's wrong with just meeting her? No one's asking you to decide anything right away. I said, I'm not seeing her. The words came colder, harder. The table went stiff in an instant. I laid down my spoon and spoke in a steady tone. The Jousts have been growing fast these last few years. A marriage alliance would benefit both families. No sooner had the words left me than Tam's head snapped up, his gaze like a blade. How thoughtful of you, he sneered. What is it for years overseas and the first thing you do when you're back is sell me off? I frowned. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He slapped his chopsticks down with a crack, eyes gone dark. Can't stop playing the good big brother, can you? Our parents were taken aback. Mom jumped in, flustered. Little Tam, is that how you talk to your brother? Tam drew a long breath, and then he smiled. Fine. An alliance, right? He leaned back, eyes locked on me. Why don't you go first? By age, it should be you anyway. Dad lifted a hand. Your brother just returned. His career isn't settled yet. So I'm the sacrificial lamb? Tam's laugh was all teeth. I set down my napkin and kept my voice even. If you don't want to, forget it. He stared at me for a few seconds, then pushed back from the table. The chair shrieked across the floor. I'm done. He turned and took the stairs two at a time, his steps thudding overhead. Mom sighed. That boy, his temper's getting worse. I lowered my head and went back to my soup. I said nothing. Until deep into the night, my bedroom door was flung open. Tam burst in, reeking of alcohol, and turned the lock behind him. I hadn't had time to switch on the light before he slammed me against the wall. Louis, his breath was hot in my ear, laced with liquor. What gives you the right? His voice was hoarse, tight with anger. What gives you the right to act like none of this concerns you? My brows knit. My back struck the cold wall. Tim, don't make a drunken scene. I'm perfectly sober. His eyes were bloodshot, his breath burning. Suddenly he dropped his head and crushed his mouth toward mine. I jerked aside, his fevered lips grazed my cheek. A flare of nameless rage shot to my head. I shoved him away with all my strength. He hit the door with a thud and grunted, then lunged back even harder, fingers clamping down on my shoulders as he bent to kiss me again. Smack! My palm stung like fire. He froze. In the dark, there was only his rough breathing and the frantic thud of my heart. Then he gave a low laugh. Louis, who was it that wasn't sober back then? He seized my jaw and forced me to meet the feverish red in his eyes. Weren't you the one who cried and said you liked me? Didn't you say you wanted to be with me? Didn't you say you didn't want to be my brother? With each sentence, the shame pressed heavier. I wrenched my gaze away, only to hear his breathing roughen. What are you pretending for now? Does one touch make you feel sick? Louis' big brother. I had no choice but to look at him. The face that used to haunt my dreams now only made me feel tired. Tam, what exactly do you want? You were the one who called it disgusting. And now you're the one breaking in at midnight, going crazy. What do you want from me? He was silent for a long time. At last, rasping out each word, he said, I want you to keep liking me. I went rigid, struck by the absurdity. For years on, that piercing disgusting still rang in my ears. Ha! A short, dry laugh scraped out of me. Tam, you've sung this tune long enough. Get out. My voice was cold and hard, with no room for softening. He stared at me, then suddenly straightened. Fine. The word was thick in his nose. Louis, remember what you said tonight. Don't regret it. He didn't spare me another look, just slammed the door and left. I leaned against the cold wall and slowly shut my eyes. Finally, silence. After that night, Tam quieted down. More precisely, he treated me as if I were air. Good. That was exactly what I wanted. That afternoon, headquarters sent over a project consultant. I pushed open the conference room door. The man by the window turned at the sound. When he saw me, his eyes relaxed and a gentle smile appeared. Louis, long time no see. My step hitched, barely there. Then I smiled too, and went over to shake his hand. How is it you? He returned the grip lightly. I'm in charge of this region for now. Heard you were back, so I volunteered to come be your grunt. Noah Forrest, my childhood friend. I was just about to trade a few pleasantries when a certain face intruded, unbidden. Back then, Tam was always jealous of Noah Forrest. Once, after I'd walked Noah out, Tam waited at the door, face set, voice sharp and awkward. If you're going to play with him, then don't play with me. Back then I only thought he was bossy and childish, almost cute. Louis, I came back to myself and let go of Noah's hand. Welcome back. I'm afraid I'll have to work you hard this time. That's how it should be. He pushed up his glasses, his gaze resting on my face for a moment. You've thinned out. You look a bit tired. Is the pressure heavy here? It's manageable. I've just taken over busy, that's all. I led him toward the table. Sit. I'll sync you on where the project stands. I hadn't finished when the door slammed open. Tam stood on the threshold with a packet of documents crushed in his fist. His expression dark enough to drip ink. Noah's smile faded a shade. He inclined his head. Vice President Jones. Tam didn't answer. He strode to the table and slapped the file down in front of me. These numbers are wrong. I picked it up, skimmed it, and kept my expression even. I'll handle it. His Adam's apple bobbed, but in the end all that came out was a frigid, derisive snort. Then he stormed out, trailing fury. My grip tightened on the file until my knuckles blanched. Noah let out a quiet sigh. Still the same, Tam. Hasn't changed at all. I lowered my eyes and only smiled. It's been a while, let me buy you dinner. For once, dinner felt easy. The restaurant was quiet and elegant. We chatted about life overseas, with bits of old stories mixed in. Still, the conversation kept drifting intentionally or not toward a certain someone. Speaking of which, your brother's at the company now. Has quite the presence, he said, as if casually, his gentle gaze resting on my face. Once, twice. What I couldn't help revealing and tried so hard to tamp down he had probably seen through long ago. The rare lightness in me sank by degrees. I set down my chopsticks and met his searching eyes, my voice steady. Noah, I don't like him anymore. Haven't liked him for a long time. His usual mild smile went stiff for a beat, then softened again. Is that so? Then don't like him. He lifted his tea and took a sip. Good. For the rest of the meal, he didn't bring up Tam again, and the talk turned to gentler, easier things. When we stepped out, the night breeze was cool. I'll drive you home. I nodded without refusing. Noah drove in an easy, relaxed way. Feels like you've changed a lot this time, he said. More. His fingertips tapped the wheel. More calm. And more tired. I said nothing, watching towers slide past the window. Lewis, letting go of some things is a good thing. People have to look ahead. He paused, and his voice gentled further. There are better views up the road. Better people. I made a non-committal sound. The car slowed to a stop outside the villa. Thanks for the ride, of course. His hand came to rest, naturally, on the back of mine as I reached for the door. Warmth pressed against my skin. My movement stalled. He didn't pull back at once. Instead, his fingertip brushed lightly along my hand. Lewis, if you don't like him anymore, then maybe give me a chance. He was very close. In those always forgiving eyes, my reflection was clear. My throat tightened. My mouth moved. But no sound came. Noah seemed to read my confusion. He eased his hand back and settled into his seat again. Don't worry. Go get some rest. I all but fled the car, mumbled a goodbye, and didn't dare look back at his face. As soon as I opened the door, a thick reek of smoke hit me. White coils drifted upward, veiling half of Tam's face. Forcing myself to stay calm, I changed my shoes and headed straight for the stairs. Had a nice chat. His voice wasn't loud. There was no telling the emotion. I stopped but didn't turn. He gave a short, cutting laugh that seemed to split the quiet room. Lewis, how did I never notice you're so popular? One after another. Busy, aren't you, Tam? My voice trembled. Watch your mouth. Respect. He shot up from the sofa and closed in on me step by step. You cuddle up with another man in a car, and you want to talk respect with me. What nonsense are you spouting? I was shaking with anger. That was Noah. We were just what? He cut in, his voice spiking. Catching up? Catching up until he has to touch your hand. Until he has to lean that close. His breath came harsh and fast, his chest rising and falling. Lewis, do you take me for a fool? I let out a cold laugh and met his stare without yielding an inch. Who I see and what I do, what does that have to do with you? Because I like you. He all but roared it, raw and ragged, making my head ring. Lewis, I want you to stay away from that forest. The way he looks at you. The way he touches you. Something seemed to choke him. The rest jammed in his throat. The living room went dead still, but for our rough breathing. His head dropped, his shoulders sagging. When he spoke again, his voice was wrecked. I lost Lewis. I stood frozen. He scrubbed a hand over his face, words muffled in his palm. Broken up. My dad back then it was with a man. His Adam's apple jerked. After a few seconds silence, he tried again. Voice shaking to pieces. When I pushed you away I was scared to death, do you know? My mom, she was such a good person, and I watched her. He seemed unable to go on. With a choke sound, he looked up at me, eyes blood red and wet. I regret it, Lewis. I regret it so much it kills me. I miss you. These for years, every single day. I missed you till I went crazy. The air was so heavy I could barely breathe. I shut my eyes for a moment and spoke very softly. Little Tam, let's just be brothers from now on, all right, like before. No. His body jolted, his voice was hoarse and stubborn. No. Bro, Lewis, don't be angry, please. Tam grabbed my wrist in a panic. Hit me. Yell at me. Anything. Just don't throw me away. He was rambling, eyes redder still. I didn't answer. I couldn't break his grip, and I couldn't harden my heart to push him off again. Suddenly he yanked me in and crushed me to him. Face burning as he buried it in the crook of my neck, his body trembling. He was crying. I stood stiffly and let him hold on. I don't know how long it took before he finally quieted. His head still rested on my shoulder. He wouldn't lift it. Go rest, I heard my own strained voice say. He stiffened again, then slowly let me go, answering with a thick, nasal That night I slept in fits and starts. In the morning my head pounded. On the stairs at the landing, I ran into Tim. When he saw me, he froze, then quickly stepped closer. Bro. His voice was hoarse and very soft. His arm slid around my waist. His chin nuzzled my shoulder so fast I couldn't react. Bro, he murmured again. My whole body tensed. The sudden intimacy left me at a loss. I drew a long breath and pushed him away, not hard, but firm. My tone was flat. I sidestepped him. When I opened the front door, a familiar car was idling at the curb. Noah was leaning against it, looking down at his phone. At the sound of the door, he looked up, the eyes behind his lenses curved. Morning, Lewis. He came over, his voice clear. Brought you something hot since I was passing by. Thanks, sorry to trouble you. I took the paper bag, my fingertips brushed his warm hand. Still being polite with me, He smiled and quite naturally straightened my collar. Get in. It's chilly out. He opened the passenger door and held his hand above the frame so I wouldn't bump my head. As I bent to get in, my eye caught the second floor of the villa. Tam was at his window. The curtain was half drawn. He stood there, his expression unreadable. I slipped into the seat and didn't look again. From that day on, Noah's thoughtfulness was everywhere. Every time I met his gentle gaze, the words of refusal clogged in my throat. All I could do was look away in silence or steer the talk back to work. Meanwhile, Tam seemed like a different person. No more cold shoulders, no more furious outburst. He turned clingy. If I was in the study with documents, he'd curl up on the sofa with a laptop. Not speaking, just lifting his eyes to glance at me now and then. Louis. He leaned over, voice muffled. You've been reading all morning. Take a break. My fingers paused on the pen. I didn't look up, my tone stayed even. Call me big brother. He went rigid. After a few seconds silence, he finally murmured it, a little rough. Then, aggrieved. Why does he get to call you Louis? Just then the phone on my desk buzzed. I closed my eyes briefly and answered. Louis, Noah's warm, smiling voice came through, unusually clear in the quiet room. I've sent the materials for the 3 o'clock meeting to your mail. See if anything needs tweaking, All right, I said, keeping it as short as I could. By the way, he added, softer still, are you free tonight? There's a new private kitchen place, very light flavors. I think you'd like it. Want to try it with me, bro? Tam cut in. He straightened a little, watching me, his eyes dark as ink, and the corner of his mouth twisted into a strange smile. I want your cooking tonight. On the line, Noah had clearly heard him. He fell silent for a breath. When he spoke again, the smile in his tone had thinned. Louis, is this a bad time? I ignored Tam, rubbed my brow, and said, I can't. What time? The next instant, my wrist was seized. Bro. His voice was wrecked. He stared at me, unblinking. You're going, let go. I tried to wrench free. He didn't budge. The call was still live. Instead of releasing me, he yanked me forward, so hard I crashed into his chest. Aggression closed over me like heat. His mouth came down hard. I turned my head by reflex and barely dodged. The burning kiss landed on my cheek, wet and hot. Tam, are you crazy? I slammed my elbow into his sternum. He grunted but held tighter, locking me in his arms. Let go. My fist thudded into his shoulder and back. He didn't move. In the tangle, his mouth dragged, scorching, along my neck, leaving sting and damp in its wake. Has he kissed you, HM? He panted, voice hoarse and unhinged, breath searing the most sensitive skin. Does he know what you look like when you cry? Does he know? His hand clamped cruelly into my waist. Does he know his big brother's waist is this small? Shut up. I shook with fury, struggling with everything I had. Let go of me, Tam. What do you take me for? Do you understand respect? The front door crashed open with a bang. Noah stood there, his face darker than I'd ever seen it. He took in my disheveled state and charged over, tearing me from Tam's arms and clamping one arm around my waist. Tam, Noah's voice was ice. Stay away from him. Put away that rabid dog act. He doesn't owe you. Tam flinched back half a step under the shout. He stared at Noah's arm around me, his voice rasping into a scrape. Louis, leaning against Noah, breath sawing, I met his gaze, cold. Tam, I hate you like this. Don't touch me. You're disgusting. The color drained from his face. His lips pressed tight. He trembled, said nothing, didn't move, just stood there rigid. Noah didn't spare him a look. Holding me fast, he turned and took me out. I stumbled along at his side. In the car, he leaned over to buckle my seat belt, his movements a little stiff. It's over, he said, starting the engine. From now on, if I'm here, you're safe. Noah took me to his apartment. It was very clean with a faint woody scent, the same as him. Take a shower. Slow down, he said, handing me a towel and fresh clothes, his voice settling back into warmth. I didn't refuse. Tam's scent and the chaos of his touch still clung to me. I only wanted to wash it away. Under the hot water, the stretched wire of my nerves slackened a little. When I came out, I was wearing the loungewear he'd given me. It smelled like him fresh. The size was a little big. The collar hung loose. He stood by the window with a glass of water. Hearing me, he turned. His gaze lingered on me for a heartbeat. Feel better? He came over and passed me the glass. It's warm. I took it. Our fingers brushed and sprang apart. The water slid down my throat and eased the dryness. He stepped back, leaned against the cabinet and spoke with gentle firmness. Stay here tonight. The guest room's ready. That's not, be good. He cut me off, voice soft. In your state, I don't feel right letting you be alone. I held the glass and didn't argue further. I really didn't want to go back there. In the days that followed, I stayed at Noah's apartment. At the office, he stuck to me like a shadow. And Tam disappeared. Disappeared completely. There was no sign of him at the company. No sound of him at home. That afternoon, my phone rang. It was Mom, Louis. Her voice carried a tiredness. Little Tam, he's leaving tomorrow. He's returned everything under the Wilson family name. And he's settled the money from these years, too. A sigh drifted through the receiver. Will you come back to see him off? My hand tightened around the phone. I was silent for a long time. No. I heard my own voice surprisingly steady. I'm busy. I can't get away. The call ended. The living room was very quiet. Noah sat on the sofa with a book, seemingly unaware. But the moment I set down my phone, he looked up. You're in, he asked, voice as gentle as ever. I returned to the sofa and sat. Tam leaves tomorrow. She asked me to come see him off. Noah closed his book and set it down, the corner of his mouth tilting into a faint arc. Good. He paused, leaned forward a little, and lowered his voice. Are you sure you won't go? I met his eyes and nodded small, but without the slightest hesitation. I'm not going back. With Tam gone, Noah began to court me openly. Being pursued by him felt strange. He never crossed a line. It was precisely that well-measured care and restraint that left me a little at a loss. Until that night, I came out from a shower, still draped in his loose loungewear. Only a floor lamp was on in the living room. The light was dim and warm. Noah was on the sofa with a tablet. He lifted his head when he heard me. This time, he didn't immediately look away or mask himself with a mild smile. He simply looked at me from top to bottom, inch by inch. Under that gaze, I felt prickly all over. My throat tightened. I cleared my throat, trying to puncture the odd mood. So, about the follow-up agreement with President Juan Legal He answered, set down the tablet and stood walking toward me. His expression stayed gentle, but his eyes burned a little. He stopped in front of me and as naturally as ever, raised a hand to straighten my collar. His fingertips skimmed my skin, barely there. The clothes, his voice was a little rough. Do they fit? Heat crept to the tips of my ears. I murmured an indistinct meaning to step back. He didn't seem to notice. The hand that had smoothed my collar slid slowly down along the placket. Warmth traced through the thin cotton and came to rest, steady, at my waist. Do they? He murmured, almost to himself, voice rougher. The hand at my waist tightened just a little. He bent slightly, drawing closer, eyes behind the lenses curving with a tender smile. The waist seems a little roomy here. Why is Louis's waist this slim? My face burned. Instinctively, I reached for his wrist. He didn't budge. Following the pressure of my grip, his fingertips stroked, light and slow. My voice went tight, with a fluster I hadn't noticed in myself. I don't know. He hummed low, but his gaze stayed locked on me. He was very close, so close I could see the long, dense lashes behind his lenses, and the reflection of myself in his eyes. Just when I thought I would stop breathing, he spoke again. Then may I hold you? My throat was dry. I lowered my eyes and gave the tiniest nod. The corner of his mouth lifted, the smile deepening. His arms slid around my waist with a firm, unarguable strength, tightening by degrees. First a loose encircling, then a fit, then a close-held bind. His warmth seeped through the thin cloth his clothes until my head swam. He held me for a long time. He fitted me completely into his chest. I could feel his breathing. Feel it grow a little less steady. I didn't struggle, only stayed slightly stiff. Suddenly the arm around my waist tightened hard. I was caught off guard, my feet left the floor at once. The little cry snagged in my throat. Reflexively, I fisted the fabric at his chest. Panic rose, I wriggled to get down, but his arm locked my waist, unshakable. He bore me up easily with one arm and with the other, turned the bedroom knob. Noah, he answered, deeper and hoarser than before, but he didn't stop. In a few strides he reached the wide gray bed and set me down gently. Before I could sit up, his tall shadow fell over me. The dimness closed in. My heart hammered. I started to turn my face from his eyes, but his fingers lifted my chin not too hard, not too soft, and brought my face back, forcing me to meet his gaze. What are you doing? I asked under my breath, my cheeks burning up. What am I doing? He echoed, a slight lilt at the end, his thumb brushing the corner of my mouth. Didn't Louis agree to let me hold him? I went rigid under that touch and wanted to dodge, but couldn't. Now, he bent lower, his breath hovered at my lips, voice ragged to breaking. Now that I've held you enough, may I do something else? He watched me, calm, gentle, patient. I didn't answer, and he didn't move. The words to refuse stuck in my throat. The word to agree was even harder to say. My mind jolted, and at entirely the wrong time. Something blurted out. You used to drag me to cut class, and Annie would chase us round the yard. He clearly hadn't expected that. After a beat of surprise, the smile in his eyes deepened. True. But, he leaned closer. The one bad thing I always wanted to drag you into was only ever this. Before I could think, his warm lips brushed the corner of my mouth a touch and gone. He let go of my chin and pushed himself up a little, even tugging my rumpled collar straight with care. All right, I won't tease you. I lay limp on the bed. Mind a dull buzz. He just kissed me, and then let go. He straightened and stood at the bedside, looking down at me. He asked a question he already knew the answer to. Scared you? My throat clenched. I couldn't get a word out. He gave a low chuckle. Turn in early, Louis. With that, he turned and strolled out, closing the door softly behind him. Shame came late and crashed over my head. I buried my face in his pillow, hard. The next day, Noah acted as if nothing had happened. Effortless as ever, and he didn't cross a line. Only I, like a fool, flushed at a single glance or an ordinary word from him. Days drifted by in that warmth-tinged ambiguity for a few months until the business reception. We couldn't avoid. I saw him, Tim. He stood across the crowd, eyes heavy as he looked over. In a few months he'd taken on a steadier air. In a sharp suit, he came through the masses step by step. He stopped in front of me, head slightly bowed, voice low and hoarse. Louis, long time no see. My throat tightened. I forced my calm and distance. Mr. Jones. He paused, almost imperceptibly, his Adam's apple working. Right now, I'm not your brother. We have no relation. He drew a deep breath. So, may I pursue you? My fingers tightened around the stem of my glass. I was just about to speak when an arm cinched my waist. I hadn't seen Noah arrive. He slipped in at my side and folded me halfway into his embrace. The usual mild smile was gone from his face. No. Without looking at Tam again, the hand at my waist slid to my wrist and clamped tight, pulling me away with uncompromising force. I stumbled as I turned, his grip on my wrist hurt. Noah, I blurted, but he didn't respond. Expressionless, he cut through the startled crowd and strode for the exit. I had never seen Noah like this. He shoved me into the passenger seat, his movements taut with barely checked anger. After buckling my belt, he didn't straighten. From that very close distance, his voice came raw. What gives him the nerve to ask? No, Noah, I started. Flustered, but then saw his eyes rim red, his voice catching on a leak of emotion. Am I overstepping again, were you? No. I cut him off too quickly. I was going to refuse. I was just about to tell him no. He froze, then slowly straightened and sank into the driver's seat. Sorry. His voice dropped. He pulled a crooked, helpless smile. Did I hurt you? I shook my head. He looked away and pressed his lips together. Should I take you home now? I've been living at his place these days. It was close to the office, convenient, safe. He'd said it made it easier to discuss work. I'd let it be. Where to? I asked softly. He blinked, then hedged. Where do you want to go? I was quiet for a few seconds, then spoke clearly. To your place. For a few beats the air went still. His Adam's apple moved, hard. Okay. We drove in silence. Back at the apartment, Noah sat on the sofa with his head lowered. I poured a glass of water and handed it to him. Thanks. His voice was dry. He took the glass and sipped, distracted. I watched him, then asked, suddenly, what do you like about me? His hand stopped in midair. He looked up at once. Then, almost without thinking, almost by instinct, he answered, I like you. Only after did he seem to gather himself. He lowered his eyes, a small smile at the corner of his mouth. I like you when you're quiet reading. His voice gentled. I like you when, even though I dragged you into trouble, you still snuck me a look when Annie scolded us and helped cover for me. I like the way you told only me all your little secrets. I like when you smile at me. He paused, his Adam's apple rolled. That one. The one that's only for me. So many things. His voice sank. By the time I realized it, there was only you left in my eyes. He tugged at the corner of his mouth, a touch of self-mockery. But by then, you already like someone else. He lifted his head and looked straight at me. What could I do? I could only hide it. He breathed the words out. Later, when I knew you didn't like him anymore, I thought this time I can't miss it. Even if there's only the tiniest chance, I want to take it. Louis, I want to stand beside you in the open. He said a great deal, and I listened quietly. At the end, I leaned down to close the distance. He tipped his head up immediately. I hesitated just a moment. Then I said, clearly and seriously looking into his eyes, okay, let's try. Noah stared, stunned for a long time. Really? His voice held a careful, tentative hope. I nodded. Certain. That's wonderful. He hooked my fingertip lightly and gave it a little swing. So, we're together. We were together. And it wasn't so different from before. He was still good to me. Thoughtful to a fault, yet it was unmistakably different. The tentative, barely there probing was gone, replaced by a steadier kind of tenderness. It was his birthday. I gave him the gift I'd prepared long ago, and took him to a cozy restaurant for a candlelit dinner. He spent the evening smiling, warm and unruffled. Late that night, back at the apartment, he leaned against the entry cabinet, still smiling as he watched me change my shoes. Any other birthday present you want? I straightened and met his gentle gaze. Any other wish? At that, he hummed softly, but didn't say. Only the look behind his lenses deepened as he asked, very softly, anything at all. I pressed my lips together. For no reason my nerves jumped, but I nodded. M.M. in that case. His smile grew, eyes dipping, his voice went low and soft. Then, can you kiss me? As he spoke, he leaned in quite naturally, until the tips of our noses almost touched. My heart skipped. I blurted, does that count as a present? We were together, wasn't a kiss the natural next step? Though, in truth, we hadn't really kissed yet. He seemed to misread my hesitation. The bright smile dimmed a fraction. He drew back a little, putting space between us, still gentle. Don't want to. Then, before he could finish retreating, my body moved on its own. I rose on my toes and pressed my mouth to his. He went still at once. My lashes fluttered. I had no idea how to kiss. I only held my lips to his warm ones. A few seconds later, I pulled back slightly and looked up straight into the depth of his gaze. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words never made it out. His hot mouth came down hard and swallowed them whole. Unlike my clumsy peck, Noah's mouth moved slow and sure against mine. Warm breath mingled. A sweet itch ran through me. I clutched his shirt, fingertips trembling. A warm hand lifted my chin, gently pinning it. Open, he rasped. My mind emptied. I parted my lips a fraction. The next second, his tongue slipped in, assertive and tender. The strangeness, the rush of heat, drew a small sound from my throat. My knees buckled. My waist lost its strength. I was sliding. He seemed ready for it, arms locking my waist, holding me up. Had tipped back to follow me. Noah deepened the kiss slow, heavy, almost greedy in his wanting. His tongue grazed my palate, tangled with my shy one, tasting, coaxing. My breath went to pieces. The only thing keeping me upright was his arms cinched tight around my waist. Still kissing me, he lifted me and walked with steady steps toward the bedroom. The door swung open under his shoulder. He laid me on the bed and came down over me. The kiss went too far. My head spun. All I could do was take the surge of him. I don't know how long it lasted, long enough to leave me breathless. At last he eased back a little, his hot mouth still brushing mine. He braced himself just enough, eyes dark, his voice rough as paper. May I? He tipped his forehead to mine, the bridge of our noses touching. Louis, you're the best present I could ask for. Seeing the love roiling in his eyes, a sharp ache rushed to my throat. My vision blurred in an instant. Warmth spilled out before I could stop it. So this was what it felt like to be cherished like this. Tam once said I'd regret it. Maybe a part of me still does. But as I curl up beside Noah tonight, feeling his steady breath against my back, I whisper, this is enough.